Mike, so it's quarantine, day 126. Man, I feel like I'm kind of starting to look like Andy Reid, dude. Like, if I don't get out of the house more, man, I don't know. So, how are you doing? Are you doing all right?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm in the same boat. I think I went 2 inches on the waistline. It still ain't close to Andy Reid, but we getting there.
So, Mike, as always, what were kind of your general thoughts on the Chiefs draft class?
So this one, obviously, uh, you always give it some of the good teams. Like obviously, we've seen Patriots, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs. I guess in the same order. Draft classes that you first question but somehow work out. I can't say I even see this one working out. I wish I could give it the benefit of the doubt. It's a good team, obviously Super Bowl champions, but even if some of these players do work out, such as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, there was likely better players on the board that brought a different skill set to that team that would enhance it more, and especially long term. So obviously the Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a little bit of surprise to be the first running back off the board and the only first round running back. There was better players on the board there. Obviously, being a Lions fan, we got a steal, I think, in DeAndre Swift. But even Dobbins and Taylor, I think Taylor would have been the perfect pick for them. The all around can do it all. And I think, yes, he has had some wear and tear. I think he's had like over 900 carries in college, but they don't need Taylor to have 900 carries. They don't need to put a large weight on his back. They don't need to have him carry the ball 20 times. They could have just had the best back. And even they could have traded back in the second round and still got a better back. So I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the pick, and Willie Gay also don't understand the pick. I just think there was better players on the board there. And the one thing about the Chiefs is they are not. There is a lot of holes on this team. They are not a perfect roster. They got elevated by, at least my thoughts, Patrick Mahomes. I think there's plenty of holes, and there was better players available at that second round pick that they could have addressed some of their actual needs on the team. I do think linebacker was a need, but I think there was better players at other positions they could have used right there. So I guess what's some of your thoughts on the class, Mike?
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of take it in order. So, going with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Let me describe Hilaire and tell me who you think he sounds like. So, he's kind of a smaller, receiving style back with good vision, hard runner, can kind of make people miss in like short areas. Mike, who's that kind of sound like to you?
Darren Sproles. I'm
Darren,
just messing with you. It sounds like Davian Williams. I'm messing.
it sounds just like Damian Williams. So I don't really know like what Clyde adds to the team necessarily, besides the fact that when Damian is a free agent, obviously you'll have Clyde. And I do agree that this is a guy who just recently shot up draft boards. When I kind of started laying out like who I was going to watch film on back in November, December, he was not even a top six guy at the position. You had Dobbins, Swift, Taylor, like you mentioned. You even had like Cam Akers, who was ahead of him at the time, and then obviously you had like the ETNs and Hubbards who decided to go back to school. But I don't really think that on film Clyde shows much that kind of indicates that he should be a first-round running back. He has the luxury of playing with the best passing offense in the league, and I mean I guess he's going to in the NFL as well. But I don't think that you can use that to kind of rationalize a bad in what I believe is a bad choice. I think that he, at best, in my estimation, was the fourth best running back on the board, but that's not necessarily saying that he might not have a better career than some of those other guys because he is in better spot, if that makes sense. Do you kind of agree with
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
And then with Willie Gay, man, Willie Gay is an interesting one. He's never really produced. I guess that's the problem. I think that you look at this Chiefs defense. We'll get to the starters later, but there's a bunch of holes where you need guys who can make plays, and we've never really seen Willie Gay make plays. I think the most tackles he's had in the season is like 48. I know this year he was suspended because he apparently cheated on a chemistry test, or so he claims. But he's just a freak athlete. You look at his like combine numbers. The dude ran like a 4.4 40, 21 reps on bench. He had like a 7.08 three cone drill, like an absolute freak. So maybe they can turn him into something for sure. But like as it currently stands, I really don't think that was a great pick in the second round. When you had guys like Lloyd Cushenberry, for example, who would have helped them out immediately and started immediately on the offensive line. Whereas I don't really know if Willie Gay is going to be more than a rotational piece as of right now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And then lastly, my man Lucas Niang. I think that this pick is kind of more intriguing than the other ones because coming into the season, he was projected to be a little bit higher than obviously the end of the third round, but he suffered a pretty bad hip injury. He tore his labrum, which ironically enough, I actually suffered the same injury my sophomore year. And I would say probably within like 10 to 12 months, I was probably at full strength, full range of motion, and like it really hasn't hindered me that much. So I see the red flags in terms of like why he dropped a little bit. And obviously it could like vary in severity. But I do think that there is some interesting value there, especially when you consider that like Mitchell Schwartz, for instance, is going to be a free agent in like 2 years. So maybe this is a guy who can take like almost a redshirt year and kind of learn from the vets that they have on their roster. But other than that, I don't really have much else. I think that in terms of like next year on the field, I think that this is probably one of the worst draft classes in the league. Even though I do see there is some potential, some athletic potential, I'll say, especially in Willie Gay's case, but there is some potential once, I guess, like the Mitchell Schwartzes and the Damian Williams leave.
I think there's always potential. Just I think they could have not only got better potential, but got better impact from day one. I think you agree there.
Oh, no, I definitely agree. And I think that they probably could have got – I mean, like I just think if I am the Chiefs and I want to add another dimension to my offense, then I don't think that that's what Clyde Edwards-Helaire is doing. I think that a guy like Swift or Taylor and Dobbins as well, I think that those guys – you could have, like you said, trade back into the second round, got much better value, maybe got another pick in like the third round for moving back. And now we're starting to fill some of those holes on defense if you did feel like you needed a running back. But I don't know if they needed a running back. If you're going to throw the ball for 5,000 yards in a season, do you really need two capable running backs? I'm not really positive. What I am positive on is regardless of this draft class, they have one of the best offenses in the league. So, Mike, I'm gonna pass it to you. What kind of excites you about this offense?
They got weapons. They have weapons for days, and they have the best quarterback in the league, no doubt. Debate it or not, just the plethora of weapons, and then Pat Mahomes' ability to kind of make plays on the run, on the fly. It basically is a backyard football team. I actually have a good comparison for this team by their play style and a lot of their players. Do you have any idea?
I do not, but I'm sure you'll enlighten us.
Yes. This team reminds me of Adam Sandler's team from The Longest Yard. We got Adam Sandler slinging the ball to a bunch of people that probably should be in the Kansas City County Jail.
Oh,
and that's exactly what this is. That's exactly what this is.
All right, so Mike, you can't just say that and not explain it to the people. So what do you mean by county jail? What is that? What are you implying there?
Absolutely. So, I am actually not a Chiefs fan. I was very sad to see them win. I think their neglect for actual character, the amount of people that have had some criminal charges. I just think that to keep Tyreek Hill like that, to trade for Frank Clark, you have Bashaud Breeland, who just had his own charges. Willie Gay probably shouldn't be in the Kansas City County Jail for cheating on a chemistry test, but he should have been kicked out of at least the campus. I just think that I try to hold myself as a high character guy, and just to see the neglect for actual character to win, obviously, Super Bowl. That's what they cared about. They got it. It just hurts my heart. But I also think on the play style, I think they do kind of switch it back to football. They do play a backyard game of football. They don't play it by – yes, they have plays. Obviously, they run some things the way they're supposed to. But when things break down, this team is the best at actually making it turn into not just a positive play, but big plays. Tyreek Hill might be the best weapon at doing that, making a play that should have been broken down, and then somehow turning that into 70-yard touchdown. I think the weapons and Patrick Mahomes, just their understanding of each other and being able to play with each other while making stuff kind of on the run, it just works well.
I agree with that. to kind of go off your first point, I mean, about the county jail. I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised they didn't trade their first round pick for Joe Mixon. I think that might have been a better. That might have been a better upgrade at running back than Clyde. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, this offense, it speaks for itself. It's outside of a couple of holes on the offensive line. I think they're right up there with maybe the Cowboys for the best fighting for the best offense in the league. I mean, there's really like where are you going to complain here? You're forcing secondaries to cover probably the fastest. I'll say the fastest guy in the league. And I realize like he's not fastest in terms of 40 speed, but like in terms of functional on the field speed, Tyreek Hill's the fastest player in the league. You have Travis Kelce, who's one of the best, if not the best, tight end in the league. And you have Sammy Watkins, who is kind of a boomer bust guy. And you're kind of forcing defenses to have two great corners and a really good linebacker or safety who can check Travis Kelce. And then once they do all those things, then you can kind of hit them with Damian Williams or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So it really is a kind of a foolproof team in the fact that they do have more than one way to win, and most defenses don't. They're unable to stop them in both of those fronts. Once they run into a defense that's able to both stop the run and the pass, I think the Chiefs might be in some trouble because the offense is covering up for the offense is basically making up for what they leave to be desired on defense. So if a defense is able to elevate to the level of the Chiefs offense, then I think they could be in trouble short term, but especially long term. One point that I kind of wanted to make was that sure, right now they have all these weapons, but when you really look at like the salary cap breakdown, like Pat Mahomes is making $5.3 million this year, which obviously affords the Chiefs all these weapons. Like next year, he's making, I think, $24.8 million, and then the year after that, he's going to be a free agent, probably bringing in $40. So I guess my question to you is, do you think that this is going to be a sustainable offense long term, or do you think they're going to really start having to pick and choose? You know, is it Tyreek or is it Kelce? Can you keep Sammy Watkins? You know what I mean? Like, I do you think that they're going to have to really make some tough decisions here in the future?
I think they're going to have to choose. I think they're going to have to start losing some of these players. But and this kind of goes with the draft is I don't think they draft capable backups or people to kind of fill that role that's the void that some of these players are going to leave. I just don't see it happening. And especially this year. This year could have been a perfect draft to draft the backup to Sammy Watkins to maybe replace Sammy Watkins in the future. Probably not Kelce. I think Kelsey's going to be a staple there, but maybe Tyreek Hill. I think they had a perfect opportunity to maybe draft that next wave as their tackles. Well, they did in the third round, but maybe that interior, they actually need interior offensive linemen to start, might as well, to groom them. So, no, I don't think they have the capability of doing it. And I don't think that they're not set up well for long term.
No, and you kind of said the tackles. I do think tackle, they're in a decent spot. You have Lucas Niang, you have Martinez Rankin from Mississippi State last year. So I do think that maybe going into the future, you can cut some costs there. What we're going to see right here is that you really can't cut them on defense because they're kind of non-existent. Like, you have Chris Jones, obviously. He's coming up here in a couple of years. You have Frank Clark. You have Bashad Breeland, Tyrann Mathieu. But other than that, Mike, who on this defense do you think is going to be here long term?
There's not too many. I think, and this is the side of the ball that I think is concerning. I think they obviously have – I keep talking about good front fours. This is a good front four. It is nothing better. It's nothing worse. It is above average, and I don't think much more than that. But they have some good young players there too as well. But after that, I don't see too much potential. Obviously, Willie Gay, if he could bring the athleticism and put some work in behind those front four, maybe. But they barely have a secondary as is outside of Mathieu and Breeland, depending on what day it is, to be honest. And he ain't going to be playing the first couple games. He's suspended. So I think there's so many concerns here on defense. And the way that they've been able to win games is by it being a shootout and them be able to put the last dagger in. It's a lot of their wins, especially against the Lions somehow. It was just a matter of the clock ran out of time. And that's what I do have concerns about this team. Yeah, they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, they have Pat Mahomes, but Man, this defense is rough to say the least. So I guess going off of that, what are some of your thoughts on this defense?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't they trailing in every single playoff game against
Yeah.
against the Titans, 49ers, and it was the Texans before that, right? They were behind in every single game in the playoffs. And eventually, the problem is as you strip pieces from that offense, you're not going to be able to make up those you're not going to be able to make up those point differentials in such quick time as they have proven that they were able to, obviously against the Titans, against the 49ers, etc. And you, like I said, you can't strip guys off this defense. You, as it is right now, you have a really good D tackle. You have a really good pass rusher. You have Tyrann Mathieu, who is getting older. Outside of that, I'm like, I really don't think many of these pieces are playmakers in the short or long term. You point out Willie Gay. Obviously, we talked about his athletic potential, but I don't know if he's the guy, but I don't see a guy. We talked about, Brashad Breeland's going to be out for the first couple weeks, or who even knows how long at this point. And who are they replacing him with? I just had to look it up here. It's either going to be L'Jarius Sneed or Alex Brown. Like, those are not capable corners at this time or potentially ever. So it's like I don't even know what the answer is here in the short term or in the long term, especially in the long term. I mean, I guess like in the short term, one thing you could do is maybe you start to move Tyron out to corner and then play Daniel Sorensen a little bit more at safety. I just don't know. And eventually, I just don't think that they're going to be afforded the opportunities that they are by their offense right now. If that makes any sense at all. I just don't see it being a sustainable winning strategy. So maybe this season they'll maybe not repeat as Super Bowl champions, but they'll definitely be atop the AFC. I think we can both say that. But maybe this isn't as much of like a dynasty as we think it is. Maybe it's more of like a Seahawks kind of situation where it's 1 to 2 years and kind of out. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree with it a lot. And I'd like to pose a question for you.
All right.
We're going to see some big games this year. AFC's a tough division. It's got tougher. Ooh, right into the schedule. So I guess my question is here: if the opposing offense has 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, one score game, do you think that defense can make a stop? Obviously, we have some good games here. We got the Ravens, the Bucks, and even like the Broncos are starting to become an actual contender. And we talked about the Chargers in one of our other videos. Do you think that defense has enough talent to make a stop on one of these teams?
No, I think that the best chance you have of winning that game is hoping that there's time left on the clock. you know, I really do. I think that if a team is marching down the field going for a walk-off win against the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that more often than not, that team will be successful. But I do think that the problem lies when, okay, you're running a 4-minute drill and you score with 2 minutes left. Oh, well, now here comes Pat, Tyreek, and Travis, and that's where the problem is. So until that core on offense breaks up, I do think that they're going to remain kind of, like I said, atop the AFC, and especially with this kind of schedule. Obviously, there's some tough games in here. You have the start of the season, Houston, Chargers, Baltimore, and then kind of towards the end with Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and the Chargers again. But other than that, there are really a lot of filler games in here, Mike. So what I'll ask you is, what kind of games do you think are going to pose a test to the Chiefs?
Yeah, and this one's probably going to surprise you a little bit. A game I'm very interested in seeing is Week 6 at Buffalo. I think that's just off initial. Obviously, the season hasn't started, but I think that might be the best defense they play. I like the Baltimore defense. I like the offseason they had on that side of the ball, but I think that Buffalo defense at Buffalo, I'd love to see that game being played. And obviously, I think that's going to put – I'd be interested to see it. And obviously, that interior of that offensive line is rough, and depending on if Ed Oliver is playing or not, it probably depends on how I feel about that game a little bit. But bring an interior pass rush, bring some blitzes. You're going to make Pat Mahomes uncomfortable, and I think that might be a game people are a little surprised about. So I think that's a really good test for the Chiefs.
I actually really like that That's a great shout out, Mike, because you think about that. So that game, it's on a Thursday, obviously. It's a shortened week, and you're going against a really strong arm quarterback who has two burners essentially in John Brown and Stephon Diggs. And if Bashad Breeland's not playing, that's a really scary matchup. And I do think that that could potentially be an upset in prime time on a Thursday night. That's a really good shout out. I think another one that's kind of interesting here is obviously the Chargers ones we've discussed in previous videos, but I actually say that next week against Denver, I think it's kind of a lot of the same in which you have two capable receivers. You have a Cortland Sutton, you have a Jerry Jeudy, and then you're going to be bringing a running attack behind it. I just don't know if the Chiefs can limit the Broncos, even with Drew Lock at quarterback, who I'm not a huge fan of. I don't know if they can stop them. And I do think the Broncos have a pretty capable defense with Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, AJ Boye, etc. So I think that'll be an interesting game. And honestly, there is a chance that if they're dropping those games, that they're maybe not winning the division, Mike. I think that is a possibility. Do you agree or disagree?
I absolutely agree. I think the Chargers and the Broncos did a great thing this year. They realized their number one competitor is the Chiefs. They have to get past the Chiefs to win their division. And I think they both set themselves up in very good positions to do so. I think they almost tailored that team around having that ability. If you look at the Broncos starting wide receivers, they are possession catchers. I think they did that. They could control the clock with that. And behind that, they also have Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay running behind them. And same with the Chargers. They got a quarterback that knows how to manipulate the clock, that can hit its checkdowns when needed, and they have the weapons to do so as well. So I think it's going to be a tougher division than many people think, and I think it's going to be a fun season. I don't think the Chiefs are as give me as most people would think.
Yeah, I feel like most people are just kind of walking in the season expecting them to almost repeat, but and maybe they will. I'll preface this with maybe they will repeat. Yeah. But I think that the road is going to be much tougher. I'll say that if the Chiefs were here last season and like the Chargers and Broncos were kind of here, I think that the gap is closing. I think those teams got substantially better while the Chiefs maybe didn't get that much better at all. So, and I don't know. Obviously, Pat Mahomes is a real young guy. I don't know how much better he can get. Eventually there is a cap on how good this man is. And I'm worried that as we approach that cap, we're going to start to see the deficiencies elsewhere.
And I also think that the Chargers and the Broncos set themselves up better long term. How we were talking about how the Chiefs are only really giving them a 2-year window before they have to start making these big decisions. That's not necessarily the timeline for the Broncos and Chargers. They're built long term as well as short term. They have the talent now, but that talent is young, and it's going to be there for quite a minute. So I also like to, real quick, preface, they're still my favorite in the division to win the division. As much as I'm talking about the other teams, they're still my favorite.
Absolutely.
I don't know about my favorite in the AFC, but they are my favorite in this division for sure. And I think they're obviously a contender. There's no doubt about that. So I just want to preface, because I've been hitting on the Chiefs pretty hard this video. So I just want to preface with that before all you guys get in the comments. Just wanted to say that.
No, I agree with that. We were kind of being a little bit pessimistic on Andy Reid and the Chiefs here, but I do think it is deserved a little bit. I mean, it's an off-season recap video, and I don't think that they did much this off-season to set themselves up for short-term or long-term success. So as much as I want to say, like, oh, we're just being too harsh on them, they're actually going to win the Super Bowl, I think that that's a little bit naive. There obviously is that chance, and I do agree they're one of the favorites in the AFC. I guess we'll have to get to our other favorites in future team recap videos, but we'll cross that road when we get there. So obviously, if you guys, I was going to say if you guys are Chiefs fans, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Maybe you guys will dislike, and we're okay with that at this point. If you guys have any questions, comments, points of discontent, anything, just toss them down in the comments. We'll make sure we answer those. But Mike?
We mic'd up. Now we mic'd out.